If you want to know why people continue to make the move to Salt Lake City, Utah, this is going to be the video for you. We're going to talk about why Utah is one of the best areas to move to. There's a recent article that just came out, and Utah ranks in the top 5 for best performing cities in 2024. We're going to run through this article here in just a second. We're going to talk about everything that people love about Utah. We're going to talk about some of the pros and cons along the way, and also why you should consider making a move here if you're doing so. If you're watching this video, there's probably a good chance that you're thinking about making a move to Utah, or you maybe already live here and you're just interested in this type of information. If that's the case, make sure to reach out to me, call, text, or email anytime. I love hearing from you guys. If I can help you in any way to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, I'd love to have a conversation with you and see how I can help make that possible. So with that being said, let's jump on my screen here. We're going to take a look at this article. As I mentioned here, it says Utah's top rankings in the best performing cities 2024 report. So starting off right here, Utah's economy is distinguished as the best in the nation for its strong business environment and job creation growth. This report, put out by the Milken Institute, focuses on sustainable growth and resilience in U.S. metropolitan areas and showcased Utah once again. There's over 403 cities that were surveyed in this report and placed in their rankings regarding opportunities for job growth, wages, and the high-tech industry growth. So this is massively important. Utah stood out in the report for making 2 out of the top 5 spots in this year's rankings for large city growth and 4th in the small cities growth category. So if we scroll down a little bit right here, we've got top 5 large cities. Austin was number 1, Raleigh, North Carolina, Boise, Idaho was number 3, and then we've actually got 4th and 5th position here on this list: Salt Lake City, Utah, and Provo-Orem, Utah. Now this is actually pretty interesting to see, because if you're a local here or you know about the area, I would actually almost group both of these areas to be, I wouldn't say they're the same city by any means, but they're within about 45 minutes of each other. And oftentimes here in this metro area, the areas get grouped together very, very commonly. You know, Salt Lake City is not a huge area. In fact, the metro area of Salt Lake City, everything from about Ogden all the way down to Payson or even beyond that, is only about 2 million people. So relatively speaking, compared to other large cities across the United States, our entire metro area is 2 million people, whereas other cities like Austin might be like 5, 6, 7 million. I don't know what the population is of these other cities, but compared to most of the other major cities across the United States, now I don't know the exact populations of these other areas, these other cities, but I do know that Salt Lake City is going to be much smaller compared to a lot of the other cities that made this list. If we look at here, Provo-Orem, this shows 660,000 people in Provo-Orem, but this actually encompasses roughly all of Utah County. So that is not just the Provo-Orem area. That's going to include everything from Lehigh, Highland, Alpine, Saratoga Springs on the north end, all the way down to Payson on the south end. So it's a little bit confusing here. It says Provo-Orem is roughly 660,000 people, but it is actually much smaller than that. If you're a local or you visit the Provo-Orem area, it feels mostly just like a suburb, you know, right in the downtown part of Provo. Yes, there are some high rises, there's a couple tall buildings and stuff, but it's mostly just like low level stuff, right? It's mostly single family homes, you know, maybe some townhomes and apartment buildings that are a few stories, but that's roughly it. The Salt Lake City proper population, this is for the city of Salt Lake. The population here is roughly 200,000. That was in 2020. We're probably a little bit higher than that, probably closer to like 210 or maybe 215 now, I would guess. So the population that we've got here is actually significantly smaller compared to some of these other areas. Now, taking a look at this top 5 small cities, St. George actually made number 4 on the list for small cities. Let's talk a little bit more about that, and then we'll come back to talking about St. George. Utah's capital has seen remarkable growth, particularly in high-tech GDP and wages over the past 5 years, which propelled the city up the rankings, surpassing Provo for the first time since 2012. Salt Lake City's low economic inequality has allowed it to thrive during and after the COVID-19 pandemic, giving it the bolster it needs to combat future economic shocks. So I think this is something that's really important. There's a lot of people looking for more opportunity. There's a lot of people looking to get ahead, get a good job, and be able to have a good lifestyle in the place that they live. And honestly, Salt Lake is one of the few places in the country that I actually realistically think that can be offered up. The popular college area in Provo-Orem lost its 3-year reign as the top performing large metropolitan area, dropping to 5th place. So it was actually number 1 for 3 years in a row, which is pretty surprising to now see it fall down all the way to 5th place. It basically goes on to state that the reason it fell down is because there was a lot of jobs that were lost over the last roughly year or so, because Provo and Orem and Utah County, for that instance, is very tech heavy. There was a lot of tech companies that started to pull back on hiring, pull back on the number of people they were keeping around. They laid off some people, and that actually pushed the job growth numbers down in this area, and that's why it tumbled down that list. Talking about St. George really quick, the southern Utah city went down 1 ranking from 2023 to 2024, but continues to show strong labor market performance, ranking 2nd among small cities in a 5-year job and wage growth. Despite its small high-tech sector, the city has seen rapid growth in high-tech GDP, meaning they're putting out a lot of GDP for that sector, mainly attributable to its computer systems design and architectural engineering sectors. The housing supply has struggled in this area to keep pace with demand, with the city ranking 125th among small cities in housing affordability. So it's actually very interesting to see that this is the problem here, because St. George really used to be just like an old, retirement community. This is where you went when you retired. If you lived in Salt Lake or you lived in Idaho or something, you would go to St. George for the winters, either for just the winter months or for full time, right? So St. George used to just be this retirement community, but now it's actually shifting into a very high growth area. Over the last 5, 10, 15 years, a lot of people have figured out, hey, St. George is actually a pretty cool place to live, and this area is going to grow like crazy. In fact, the area that grows the most over the next 30 years in the entire state of Utah. So we're gonna see a lot of growth here in the area. And that's something that you really need to keep an eye on. This last line right here, the city relies on the Virgin River for its water. There is obviously a water shortage there in the area, so we'll have to keep an eye on that and see what happens over the coming years. Next up, I want to talk about this. Another reason why people continue to move to Utah, because of the lifestyle that you get here. 12 million people visited Utah state parks in 2023. These were the most and least popular ones. So there was actually a graph put out right here. Utah's most visited state parks in 2023. We've got Sand Hollow, Washington County, right outside of St. George. 1.4 million people visited here. Dead Horse Point, just over 1 million. Snow Canyon, also in Washington County, St. George, 954,000. Antelope Island, 900,000. We've got Willard Bay, Jordanelle, Deer Creek, Wasatch Mountain, Bear Lake, and Goblin Valley. If you look at this, there's actually a lot of lakes and water on this list here, right? We've got Bear Lake, Deer Creek, Jordanelle. We've got Sand Hollow. You got Willard Bay. We've got all of these different areas where there's water. So lots of people are trying to get out on the water because we had such a good snowpack year this last year. That actually brought water levels up in a lot of these reservoirs and different lakes, and that's actually driving people to go and visit those areas. Also right here, Utah's most visited park in 2023 wasn't one of the Mighty Five. So the Mighty Five is going to be considered Arches, Bryce Canyon, Canyonlands, Capitol Reef, and Zion National Parks. In 2023, there was over 10.6 million people who visited these 5 national parks, which is a 1% increase from the year prior to that. We actually, the total here, last year's total also finished slightly below the 10.7 million visitors recorded in 2019. However, the interesting thing about this that I wanted to point out is that Glen Canyon Recreational Area, which is where Lake Powell is located, this is along the Utah-Arizona border, led in visitation among all national park services in Utah last year. It says they brought in a record 5.2 million visitors during this time. The visitation numbers in this area surged by a whopping 83% over 2022 visitation figures, and it bested Zion National Park's total by close to 600,000 visitors. So it's actually kind of crazy if you think about how many people that is. 600,000 people going to this national park or to this recreational area is absolutely insane. It was even higher than Zion. I didn't think that something would beat Zion. I mean, this shouldn't be totally surprising because Lake Powell is actually one of those areas that I grew up going to as a kid, and I've only been able to make it back there a couple of times over the last, 5-7 years, and I absolutely love it there. I cannot wait to get back. I'm trying to get back, trying to get a boat to get down to this area because it's just absolutely gorgeous. We've come over here to a map of the Lake Powell area. So this is Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. You can see that it's a very, very small lake. You've got the Bullfrog Marina over here. You've got Waweep right here. This is actually like on the Arizona side, but it's a very, very small lake, relatively speaking, right? It's not like the Great Salt Lake or Utah Lake or just any other lake, right? So you've got Utah Lake right here. The Great Salt Lake is right up here. These are massive lakes in the area. Lake Powell is a much more confined area. It's much smaller. And if we come over here, you can see the other national parks. We've got Zion National Park right here. You've got Grand Staircase Escalante. If we zoom in a little bit, you've got Bryce Canyon right here. And then you've got Capitol Reef right over here, right there. Capitol Reef right there. So all of the other national parks are very close by, but nothing really beats Lake Powell. I mean, you just get some of these gorgeous photos. This is a picture of Lake Powell. Just absolutely amazing. This is the dam. These are some of the views that you get from the lake, and it's just an absolute blast to be able to spend time there. So it's not really a surprise, but it is kind of a surprise. I didn't think that it was actually that well known or it's getting that amount of visitors. So with that being said, guys, I just wanted to share a quick video here going through some topics on why people continue to move here, visit here, and why people love this beautiful state. So if you're thinking about making a move here to the area, please reach out to me. I've had hundreds of people reach out over the last couple of years who are making a move here to Utah. So if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, my information is here on the screen. Please call me, text me, shoot me an email, whatever works for you, works for me. I would love to hear from you about your situation and see how I can help make that a reality. With that being said, guys, thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next video.